All right, good afternoon. What we'll be going through today is a recap of the basics. So we'll go through creating a quote as well as creating a new opportunity. And then we'll go through using the field functions today as far as the prepared stuff. So if you're a new user, this should be particularly helpful to you. We'll go through a couple of different ways that you can build your quotes and all that. So without further ado, I'll go ahead and jump into it. So right now we are on the opportunities overview page. This is accessed through this left-hand menu at the opportunities page. And the default landing page is going to be the all tab. So this includes all opportunities as well as opportunities that have been converted over to a project but have not yet been closed. So this is going to show all of your opportunities, regardless of when they are slated to potentially be awarded. And then with these other tabs, you can break it down into time periods. So in the things that you're expecting in the next 3 months, 3 to 6, 6 to 9, etc. And then we also have a couple more tabs here for some specific categories. So if we go over here to the one tab, this would be one but not yet converted to project. These ones are the ones that are converted to project. And there's a couple of sub tabs here for projects, so you can see active or completed projects. And then we also have the lost, inactive, and canceled tabs. So creating a new opportunity is pretty easy. What we'll do is we'll use this quick add button. So once I click this, we're going to get this pop up, and there will only be 2 required things to create an opportunity. And that's the opportunity name and the client and lead. So what we'll do is we'll say we've got a new opportunity that we just heard about. It's going to be for the Spurs, and it's going to be for Tim's office. So the client or lead, I'm going to go ahead and start typing this in. Once I start typing, it will pull up any companies that we've already created in the CRM over here. So as I start typing, SPURS, it says no results found. Click to create new. So when I click this, we're going to actually be able to create a new company right there. It's been created, and we just have to assign it to an industry. And we'll call this one, let's see, what's the most appropriate for it? We'll call it other for this one. And if we did not need to create a new client, we just would have been able to select it right there, and we wouldn't need to select the industry. And if you accidentally ever click that button, you can click this trash icon. It will get rid of it, and then you can go ahead and select the company as you need. SPURS, we'll create it. And the industry, we'll select other here. So right now, we could go ahead and save and close it, or we can go to the opportunity or open the company info. Of course, because we've created the company name and industry, most of the information on the company is blank right now. So I'm going to go ahead and, actually before I do that, I'm going to click this more selection right here in the middle. This is going to give us a few more options. So if you do have additional information after you've heard about this opportunity and want to get it included, you can enter that here. So you can enter in the award date, order date, and win likelihood. If you know any of that stuff, I think it's always helpful to input an award date if you just have a general sense about when the award would be. So if we know that this is going to be sometime in the late summer, maybe I'll put in an August 31st award date, just so we've got something, and that way it'll populate the estimated award time frame, and when we build out our forecast, we've got a sense for where it will be, and we'll put the order date just into the first week of September. Win likelihood, we'll just leave that at 0 to 25%. You can categorize it in these 4 different buckets. if you're wondering where the DIRTT likelihood is, that is included in the Opportunity Info tab. This is really meant for your own internal reference so that you can get a sense for, what you believe the opportunities the opportunity win likelihood is.
You had said, hi, John, sorry. When you said the win likelihood, that's internal, and then there's another DIRTT one. What are you referencing?
Sure. The DIRTT one, so if you need to submit your forecast to DIRTT for for the SFNs, they've got the 0 to, I believe it's 69%, and then they've got 70 to 89%, and then 90 to 100%. So I just wanted to mention that there is a second win likelihood.
Oh, okay. So where would we have to, would we change, where would we change that just for future reference? Is it like a setting? It's in the Opportunity Info page, and okay.
I'll point that out once we get there.
Okay.
Just want to go through a couple more of these things while I've got this pop-up open, because we won't be able to get back to it. But
sounds good.
If I do forget to, please let me know.
Awesome.
So we've got the identified, cool. I've got the identified date here as well. And then if we have a project number, some partners use this to coordinate back to their accounting system, or to really coordinate between systems, or whatever your use may be. You've got this available here as a field. You've got the opportunity owner, so usually that's who identified it. You've got the lead designer, we can go ahead and put that in, and as well as the PM. And then down here, if you're trying to put this out there just so that you've got a total for your forecast, you can do that really easily by including the total cost and total sell, just so you've got a rough order of magnitude. It won't have any detail, but what it will do is it'll automatically flag this quote that'll be built. It'll just be, a cost and sell, one line item quote, but it'll flag it to the forecast tab so that it'll flow through there. So we'll do for this one, we'll say we're expecting it to cost about 100K and $4 million, whatever. And we'll say the sell is going to be 125. Cool. So we'll go to save and open opportunity. And I'll show you that that field that I was referencing there, Nicole. So before we get into anything else, that DIRTT forecast number is right here. So that's the one that they have for their when they're building out their forecast. So we'll just match this up here, put it in the 1 to 69%. And while we're talking about project probability, there is a third drop down here. I know when I first saw this, it confused me. I was like, why do we have 3 different things here? Well, the reason we have the win likelihood broken down into these buckets that are more segmented, we found a lot of partners wanted to be able to differentiate at a more kind of step level. Like we wanted to say something as a really low probability or something as a moderate probability, because there's a big difference between something that we think is a 1 in 4 chance to something that we think is, more than halfway probable. And so that's the probability of you winning the opportunity. And then this project probability is intended to capture what is the probability that this project is going to happen. Do we know, is it a for sure thing? Or from the client's perspective, maybe it's a nice to have, so we're going to classify it as low. Or maybe we just don't have a ton of information on it, and it sounds like something that they're going to do, so maybe we'll just put it at medium. And then going through here, we've got a bunch more information that we're able to populate. If we had included all of the information on the client, it would pull through here for the street address and all of that. However, since we built a brand new client when we created this opportunity, all of this is going to be blank because the system's just not going to know to pull that information from. So you can go through, you can populate it here. I'm not going to do that just since we're going through this on the training, but a couple more things that I wanted to point out while we're on this tab here is that we also have the architect information as well as the general contractor here. So if you go and if you already know who you're going to be working with as far as the architect or general contractor, you can fill that out now. And you can also come back and fill that whenever that information becomes clear. The reason you might want to do something like this is because ultimately you'll have to fill in that information when submitting the order to DIRTT. And if you capture it here, it will already be pre-populated once you get to that order entry page. So that'll help save you some time down the road. And then we also have the attributed location. So some partners have several different locations throughout their geographic region. So what you can do is you can include this, this tag on one of your opportunities so that you know where it's associated to. And similar to the architect and GC, this information will also flow through to your order page so that the order team is clear on which location this opportunity is associated to. Then we have a couple more pieces of information over here on the right for the inbound opportunity. So if you know, someone's knocking on your door, you can just flip this over to yes and mark it as inbound. If it's something that you're going out and seeking, which I think is more common, you can leave it checked as no. And then there's also the project type here for DIRTT versus other. The flagging it as DIRTT will, once you get to the project stage, have it include deficiencies, and there's a couple of other DIRTT specific features that are keyed off of this, this selection right there. So without further ado, I'll go over to the quotes page and we'll build a quote. So there's a couple of different ways to build a quote. You can create a new quote. You can see here that we've already got a quote built, and that's from the values that were populated on that quick opportunity create page. So we've got that cost and sell here that I had filled out on that page. So we could edit that if we wanted. I'll go ahead and open this just to show you what it looks like. But this is just a single line quote. So most of the time, I found that people don't want to necessarily build off of this one. We'll just go ahead and leave this one as it is, as our kind of first pass at it. So if we create a new quote here, what we're going to see is we have 6 line items here that are pre-built for us. Since the vast majority of projects that are being built in this application are DIRTT related, we've got these 6 line items, and 4 of them are for your SFN numbers. And those will pull back into the opportunity overview tab if you populate them. So the way these ones work, the way the system knows that it should pull them through over to that opportunity overview tab is not based on the name, but it's actually based on these checkboxes over here to the right. So the first thing is it's flagged as a DIRTT product. So if we unflag it, you can see all this stuff to the right here goes away. And if we reflag it, we'll be able to select either it's for walls, millwork, power and data, floors, or other. So we'll just remark this one for the walls, and then we can fill out all of our costs as well as our margins here below. So we'll say that the walls are going to be the bulk of our costs. We'll say that they're going to cost $48,000, and the margin here we'll put in at 30, and that'll spit out our sell price. And then we'll say it is taxable. I'm going to hit the space bar here. It's one trick as far as just making all of this go as quickly as you can. And that will check it. Hit tab again, and then we'll mark the tax rate as 8 1/4. So now that we've got this line item built, we can go ahead and hit save. But let's say that on our next one, we're going to have several different pieces to say the, let's just call it for the contingency. And we want to show it as far as to the client, still all in one line item. So what we're going to do is we're going to build these hidden items. So it's going to work the same way really as this line works, where we'll enter in the cost and then the margin, and it'll spit out the cell, and you can add text or anything else here. But the handy thing about this is you can keep this really for your internal records. So you can say, all right, well, what made up our contingency? We want to have some install contingency. And then, we'll just say we want to keep something like $5,000 of contingency. And we don't want to increase our cost. So for this, I'm just going to type in 5,000 into the cell. And then we also want to include something else here for contingency. Let's just say it's, materials contingency. We'll just include this as 2,500, and we'll hit save here. So with all of this included, we know what's going to make up that 7,500. We'll go ahead and input it into the cell. You'll notice that when we calculated this stuff, it did not automatically populate this. The reason behind that, why we didn't have it just automatically populate this part up here at the top, is because we wanted to make sure to give you the flexibility to have these things remain separate. So if say we were adding tax onto this and it came out to a weird number, and you're a person that likes nice round numbers, you can just input generally what the total is up here at the top. So go ahead and hit save here. And we can see that the $7,500 for the cell came through on the contingency. The other way to add line items into a quote is to use this add frequent product button. These frequent products will come from the My Company page, which is accessed through here. This is the building icon, or what's also commonly known as the waffle icon. When we click this, any products that we've already created over there will be available here to import. So if you have a certain COM glass vendor that you use a lot, it can save you the time of keying in the information. So you typed it in, just double clicked it, pull it in, and we've got the vendor already aligned to it. We've got the description already created. And all we have to do is come in here and input the cost. So we'll say this is $9,500 at a 30% margin. We'll include the tax on this again at 8.25, and we'll hit save here. So it's really easy to build quotes and build them quickly. So if you ever need to, or as you're building these, I think you'll kind of find your own tricks to be able to do this as efficiently as you're able. So I'm not going to drain everything here on the quotes here to go over the basics, but I am going to go over a couple more things here. So for the client information, a lot of this is really more useful at the project stage, because we have a couple of these pieces, the project address as well as the delivery address. And because it's pulling from order entry, that's something we only have at the project stage. But for the client address here, since we don't have it populated for the CFM, from the CRM, that is, you'll see it's blank here, but if we fill it out, it will pull through here. Next, for the overview, we can create the quote name. This is really helpful if you're doing multiple different versions of the quote. So if you're coordinating with your client and there's a few tweaks here or there and you're submitting multiple revisions to them, this is pretty handy so that you can create several different copies of your quote, and you can eventually mark one as approved by client, and you can also mark whether it's been submitted to the client. These partners have found handy for their own internal reference, because if you're working on a bunch of different projects, it's hard to remember which was the one you submitted, or the one that the client approved. There's also this last modified by. This is pretty handy if you're working with a couple of other people on it. So you can always see who is the last person to change a quote. In that sense, you'll probably know whether or not like an update has been made that needed to happen. There's also this include signature block. This is meant to for your documents that you print out. So going to flag this to yes. And then when I go down here to create the quote, what it's going to do is it's going to include a place for your signature as well as the date at the bottom of the page. And there's the signature block. You can also include both your sales rep as well as sales report here on the quote. Really capture a lot of information on this page. Here in the middle, we can add quote alternates. So if there is, say you have like a COM item that's more expensive, but you just want to make sure that they're provided all of their options. You can build out your quote alternates here. This is going to function highly the same way as the rest of the quotes, so I'm not going to drain this all here. But the one thing I do want to point out here is that you can include it on the bid or not include it on the bid. If you include this here, what that will do is it'll pull through to this overall total. If that is not marked as yes, then it will not. A couple other things here is we have the override tax button. This does exactly what you think. So if you're trying to match to this tax number and say it's, it's a penny off from your accounting system because the rounding is slightly different, you can do this and we can change this and we'll just say it's supposed to be 80 cents instead. The project bonded, this allows us to include a bonded dollar amount here as well. So one thing that in talking with partners is that, doing DIRTT stuff, it's all measured in linear feet, but a lot of times that's apples and oranges for when you're bidding against another company. So we included an area in here to include your square footage so that they can get that sell by square foot as well. So let's just say this is, call it something like 5,000 square feet. We can see it comes out to about $20 per square foot. And then you can also include that information on your quote so that they've got that piece of information so that now instead of comparing linear feet to square feet, they've got something that they can kind of wrap their arms around too.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
Cool. And then this last section really has 4 more group boxes down here. So we've got our install estimate as well as the quote response, terms and conditions, and exclusions. So these 3 here, I'm going to skip over the install estimate for right now, but these 3 pieces here, the quote response, terms and conditions, these are all pulling from the master template, which is managed under the My Company page. So far we've got 2 things that are managed under that My Company page. It's going to be these items down here and the frequent products up here. And similar, you can add frequent products for your alternates as well. So I mentioned that they pull from your master template, and you can see that the way we've got it set up in the My Company page is that the pricing is based on, and then just underscore for a blank, lineal footage. So what we can do here is we'll say it's based on 200 lineal feet. And this change here is going to be specific to this quote. It's not going to change anything in your My Company page. It's not going to change your master template. All these changes here will be unique to this quote. So going over to the install estimate, this is really handy if you have your install team in-house or if you're working really closely with a subcontractor where you're getting down to the nitty-gritty on how many hours they're spending on each kind of phase of the project. So there's 2 ways to do it. You can do it as the summary install estimate, where it's just going to show you the supervisor, technician, or laborer hours, or you can do the detailed estimate. And really the prime difference here is that you're going to be able to differentiate between regular time and overtime. So if you know that on the demo day, it's going to take, a long day. It's going to be a 12-hour day. You can say 8 hours here and 4 hours of overtime. You can also capture the complexity, as well as the number of doors, linear feet, workers, technicians, and laborers again. So this will tell you both your head count and then how much in terms of hours you're expecting for each of these pieces. Now, this does seem like a lot of work to go to the trouble to put all of this stuff in, but I would balance that by saying that this has been one of the things that partners have been able to get really the most out of this in terms of their bottom line, because once you start tracking this level of detail at the estimate stage, you can compare back to this once status reports start coming in from the actual installation itself. So if we were assuming this demolition was all going to happen in one day, just be it a long day, and then once the status report comes in and we really have 16 or 18 hours because it ended up taking a day and a half, well, it's like, okay, well, maybe we need to be more conservative on our estimate for that, or maybe we need to build in some contingency, and it's specifically related to this. So with that in mind, the more you put into this, really, the more you're going to be able to get out from it. There are a couple more documents that you can produce from here. So you've got the quote. You can also create a summary quote. Of course, you can send an email directly from here. And then this last one, this internal pricing document, this is a little different from the other two because it includes your cost as well in this one. So this is what partners typically use to send over to their accounting team, so that if you use Core or Team Design, so that those systems really stay in sync with what you're doing here in Kinetic. So I'll go ahead and hit save on this one, and I want to do a couple more things here on quotes before we move over to the field user stuff. So the first is, let's say that we have a revision on this quote, but we want to make sure that we capture that this one was, this one was submitted to the client. Before we do that, we'll just mark this one as submitted. But we want to make sure that we know we've got a couple of different versions that were submitted. So we'll use this duplicate quote button, and it's going to pull up a new one. So we'll just rename this guy to quote number 3. But all the numbers here have pulled through, and say we just wanted to make a change on here, we'll make that change and we'll click save, and that way we're able to do revisions with a history on them very quickly, which is really handy. And so let's say that this third one is the one that we want to include in our forecast. You can use this designate and undesignate forecast as needed for that purpose. And so right now we just have that original quote, the one that was created from the quick opportunity, is flagged as our forecasted quote here. So we want to change it over here to quote number 3 now that we have something more specific that's been built out line item by line item. So we did that, and then this last one is the newest feature here from quotes, is the ability to import a quote. So we've heard from our partners that sometimes you've got a multi-phase project, and you're building it out on several different pieces or on several different opportunities because they truly have to be won separately. And your quote is going to be 90% the same. So with that in mind, what you can do here is you can import a quote. And what this is going to, once you click that import button, this page here is going to show you all of your quotes that have either been designated as your forecast or designated as final. So it's not going to show you all 3 different quotes here from the Tim's office opportunity. It would just show you quote number 3 because that was the one that ultimately ended up being used. So I'm just going to pull in a quote here just to kind of show you how it works. We're going to pull in this University of Pittsburgh admin building blue model quote. I'm going to click this, and then I'm going to click select. You can also just double click it to pull it in. And this is going to create a new quote for here. So it's named it for the opportunity that we're currently on. and it pulled in the information from that specific quote, and it'll pull in really everything from it. All of the base quote details, any alternates that are attached, as well as the install estimate. Cool. So the next thing I wanted to do here, if there are any other questions, is to take a look at the field functions. So this is for anyone who's not a named user, anyone who doesn't have a license. They are going to be, you can set them up as a field user, either as an install or external vendor role, and that'll let them access certain portions of the application. The real idea behind this, just before I kind of get into all the how to use it stuff, the idea behind it is that, you know, if you've got an install team, or, you know, if you're working with several different subcontractors, you don't want to pay for a license for every single subcontractor that you use. So the cost for that, you know, is well, there's no additional cost to create an install user. And when you do, they're going to be able to access a project that you've assigned to them, and they'll be able to submit status reports that have hours, or to submit a potential cost impact, like if something breaks on the job site, or if there is a, you know, if there's a delay for whatever reason, they can go ahead and submit this in the application. The benefit of a PCI specifically being is, you know, we've kind of seen everything. The one that comes to mind is we saw a text message where it's just like a picture of a napkin with a written down description, you know, going between the install team and the project manager. So, you know, it's kind of hard to keep track of all that stuff, you know, unless you have a single source. And the KPMIC is really meant to be, you know, your single source of organization, so that you can work around that. And then also a punch list item, and they can also, you know, create a deficiency from the field as well. But so coming back to the top here, how do we set them up to be able to use it? Where you'll want to go is you'll want to go to this vendors tab. And by the way, we do have a PDF outlining all of this stuff, both how to create, and then specifically for field users, how to use kind of each one of the pieces. So, you know, if you want that, just let me know, and we're more than happy to provide that to you. All right, so we go into, we're going to add a new user to this install team subcontractor. So we've got our company information. We can see that they're already assigned to a bunch of different projects that we've worked with them in the past. And their company type here is a subcontractor. So we'll create a new employee, and I'll just create myself on this one. We'll just call it John Install. And I'm going to add the user role here of installation team. So there's two here. There's a little summary right here as well. So the user role is set by default and should be used with the majority of businesses you interact with. The reason it says it like this is because your external vendor is just going to have like the bare minimum of access, while your install user role is really for just specifically teams that are going to be doing installations. And, you know, what's the difference between these two? It's that the external vendor is only going to have access to something like, say, an RFI. Like, they'd be able to come in here, provide their response in KPMIC if you want to, and then that's it. It won't be able to, you know, create a status report or submit a punch list item or do any of that other stuff. So it's important to remember that if you do want them to be able to do all that stuff, to add this installation team role.
So did you get that from going to the waffle and then going to vendors? And then I would say our install team is MSI. I would then click on MSI. Is that how you got to that?
I actually just went to tab.
Oh, vendors tab. Okay.
So you can really do.
Sorry, you cut out for a second. You said you could do it how I explained it, or just going to the vendors on the left?
Correct. Yep.
Okay,
you
cool.
can do it either way. And you just click into an existing vendor, or you can create a new vendor. Really the key here is to make sure that if you want them to have all of the stuff that we're going to look at here in a minute, is that they've got this installation team role. And then once you save them, you want to use the save and email user button. This is going to let them set up a password, and it will create them a login. Their username is just going to be their email address ordinarily. So
okay.
Just as a heads up, because this does come up, when you're setting up someone new, is that the first email they get may go to their spam folder. So if they can't find that email, make sure they check there. So going over to a project, I'm just going to go ahead and click into one of these here. See which one we have first here. Do a status report first. The other thing you need to keep in mind is that once you've got someone set up as an install user, you'll want to make sure that they are included on the project team. So I'm going to go ahead and add the John install as the as someone on this team to make sure that they're able to access the project.
Hi, sorry. How did you get to that page really quick? Stella's Barkshop?
Yep. So you just click in. Yeah, no, you're good. You click into the project and then up here on the team.
Oh, okay.
Yep. And you want to make sure to add them in here as a contact on there, because the way the security roles are done for all of these either install or external vendor user roles is that they're only able to view the projects that they are assigned to. Which is, I think, a good thing, because if you're working with several different, vendors, you don't necessarily want them to see every project you're working on, just the ones that they really need to see. The other thing I would say here is that, just as a rule of thumb, if it has a $sign next to it, your installers, your external vendors will not be able to see it. So instead of seeing your final quote information and all of these numbers here, it's just going to be like a green box instead for them.
Hi, okay, sorry, I'm going to interrupt you again. So this whole screen that you're having that has the project info, the team, the design, the tasks, the RFQs, if I'm in that forecasted quote, and then it shows all my dirt walls, millwork, power, I'm in the wrong area. So I guess my question is, how do I get to the screen that you are on, maybe backing up from the team? Sorry.
Sure. Yeah, no problem. So are you under a project, or are you in an opportunity? Which tab are you starting from?
I was in an opportunity, so I need to start from projects.
Correct, because that's actually another good differentiation here, is your install users, or any of those, will not have access to any of your opportunities. It'll only be stuff that is at the project stage and later.
Okay, so projects on the left for install team, and then that's what okay, so then I'm trying to follow along and pull up projects so all the projects that are on here have to have that designated forecast to show up, correct? I'm assuming?
Yes, correct.
Okay.
From the quote to pull through onto the forecast tab.
Okay. All right, awesome. Onward, sorry.
No, interrupt as often as needed. And all right, so we've got them added to the, I guess it was in a different project, but so we've got them added to the team now, and you can now, they'll be able to get in and do everything that they need. Since the view is really going to be the same, I'm actually just going to stay in logged in as a DIRTT partner user. And we've got the status reports here, and what you can do is you can create a new one. I'm just going to open this existing one. So we'll get the lead PM, install contact, you can fill out the supervisor, and you can fill out the date of the status report. This next part here is who you want to assign it to, so you can add or remove people as needed. I'm going to go ahead and add myself or add John install there. And from here, you can also manage the project team. So instead of having to navigate over to that team tab, you can do it from right here. So any changes that you make here, once you click save, will also kind of flow through back into that team tab. So to get to the meat of this is the activities. So what we have here is the delivery staging is what's already been entered. So you've got the linear feet installed captured for the day, and then you can use these sliders to capture the amount of hours that have been worked for any of these stages. Nicole, if you're following along in this part, you'll probably notice that this bottom section here with all of these sliders is not available when you click new for an activity. The way you get that to be viewable is to flag it as yes to track the install hours, because you can either just track the activities in general, what's happening for the day, or you can get down to that more granular level about what is how many hours are actually being spent on this activity and by who. The benefit of this, again, is going back to what we were looking at on the quote when we were building out the install estimate. So if you have an estimate, then you can compare your actuals, which is what we're going to get from this status report. And in that way, you'll be able to learn where are estimates not accurate, and where are the hours potentially leaking from, or where are we really just doing an outstanding job, and maybe we don't need to allocate so much time for say it's like delivery and staging. If you find that, then of course you can lower your estimates going in, and if it's a really competitive bid, that you've got the wiggle room there on your pricing to be able to do that. So with these activities, and I'm not sure if I mentioned this or not, but this is all set up to also be mobile friendly. So if your installer is on site and they have a tablet or they have a smartphone, this is optimized for touch. So if they just go to the same website that you use and log in there on their phone, it will redirect them to the mobile site where they're able to input all of this stuff. And with that in mind, they can also take a picture directly from their phone and attach it. So if you're coming back and looking at this activity as a PM from something that someone submitted on site, you can view that images, and you can zip and download all the photos attached to it if they've submitted several different things. I think this is really handy if they're trying to tell you about why something isn't working the right way, to be able to have that visual there.
Hi, question. So we run into that a lot of we're on the phone with them, they're on the job, and I don't understand what you're saying. So if they took a picture basically in real life, in real time, and then updated it and added it, sorry, we're a very open office and everybody's very loud right now. I don't know how much you can hear. And so they updated it. Would I be able to then go into it, logging in on my side on the project, and see that photo basically almost instantly?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Really,
boom,
they would just,
dang.
Yeah, I think once they hit save on the photo, you'd be able to view it.
Wow.
And be able to do it. So it's really handy on here. And the other part is that say you need to pull someone else from your team in on it. You don't have to send it to them. They can just log in, go to the project, and view it there as well.
And it's just not going back through. It's of course we have all their cell phone numbers and vice versa, but then it's there all like a paper trail, literally an image trail of going back, instead of us going back through all of our conversations on cell phones. It's crazy. This is awesome.
Yeah, exactly. It's just meant to.
We knew we weren't properly using it, but I think now we are definitely realizing we were not using it properly.
Yeah, and for install users, it's really not that difficult to kind of get them up to speed. I think for a distribution partner user, because there's so many different aspects of the application, it takes a while to get comfortable with it. But for for someone out just using it in the field, like and trying to submit a picture, it's pretty simple. You know, you go to the project, you click take a photo, and you hit submit, and then you know, it all pulls through. So down below, once you have all of your status reports, and you know, if they're submitting them daily, you'll have a good list there. And then below here, you can see that these will correspond back to those different installation activities. So you've got delivery and staging here. We can see that our estimated hours were 15 and our actual hours were 68. So we know that our estimate was way below what we actually did. And we've got this red bar here to show that it's over what our estimate is. So the same stuff will flow through for any of those other ones. So the next one we will want to do here is a PCI and a punch list item. Since we only have 5 minutes left on what we had originally allocated here as far as time goes, I'll go through these pretty quickly. For a PCI, you know, as I mentioned, this is for something that we don't necessarily know how it's going to turn out. So let's just say that the freight elevator was too small and it's going to be a stair carry. We're not sure who was responsible to make sure that that freight elevator was big enough, but we know that it's going to be an extra cost. And it's going to be some extra hours here. And we're just going to say it's maybe 4 guys, extra day's work at $40 an hour. So let's go for over $1,000 here. We don't know. Good.
Sorry. So this is like as you're going through live on the job, and this is kind of like an oh shit, this is an extra $1,280, and we're just keeping tracking it as the job is happening. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly. Like your field user is going to be the first person to know about anything, and it's just getting that single source again so that they can put it somewhere so you can figure out, you know, what needs to happen from here. So that's it's like the, you know, that central source of organization around your project.
And you said that the installer would be able to input in all this information as well if they did that external whatever user.
Yeah, the installation team user, and this is all optimized for mobile as well, so they can do this through their phone.
Awesome.
So they could, you know, even take a picture of the elevator, and it's like, hey, you can see this stuff doesn't fit, or you know, you can take a picture of like maybe what the elevator's weight capacity is, or you know, whatever the case is. And from this PCI, you can turn it into 3 different things. You can turn it into a change order request. Maybe this was something that was supposed to have been verified by the client, and ultimately they're going to have to catch the bill for this one. You can turn it into a billable, which is something that the DIRTT partner would have to eat. It's a cost that would be a margin hit there. And then a deficiency, you know, wouldn't apply for a stair carry. But if you need to create a deficiency form from this, like let's say that they were on site and saw some scratched tiles, they could use that as a PCI. Take a couple of snaps of the tiles, submit it here as a PCI, and then you can pick up the baton from there and go through the stuff to create a deficiency out of it. So let's say in this case, you know, it was supposed to be something that the subcontractor was supposed to have checked out because they're the ones who provided you guys the quote, and it was something that's their fault. So that's also going to be qualified here as a billable. So do this real quick, create a billable out of it. It pulls through over here to the billables tab. Double click on it here. And right now, what we're going to see is that this billable total, it had used to be $4,000, and now it's $5,280 because we've got this $1,280 here for the stair carry. So we're going to say the install team was responsible for it. Flag that to yes. We'll select the install team here as the team. When I click save here, it's going to reduce that billable total back down to $4,000 because the subcontractor is liable for it here. So naturally, if the subcontractor is going to pay for it, like they're not going to bill you for any additional hours, then of course you wouldn't want to count it as a margin. Cool. So last thing here is a punch list item. So as you're going through, the project is wrapping up. You want to make sure that everything is installed correctly. And let's say that we found something like, door is supposed to be opening inwards, but it's actually opening outwards. So let's say the door was installed backwards. The action required is we're going to have to schedule installers to get that changed out. It's open. You can attach an image or related document. Again, this is all mobile friendly as well. Let's say it's coming from someone on site. They can add you onto it. They can add you on here, and just click the send email button, and that'll let you know, hey, there's a punch list item that needs your attention here. It'll tell you the what project it's related to. It'll also have a deep link, so once you get that email, you can click back into it. The same thing's true for really a lot of these places where it says send email. But yeah, like in a nutshell, those are really the three main things that install users would be able to do. And kind of once you have one of them figured out, the rest are pretty similar.